shining down on the valley. Hope to be a fly fish till the day that I die. Spring has thawed out the long bitter winter. The water is clear and the skies are blue. I'm standing in the middle of the Beaver Kill River. Might even catch and release one or two. Well, some folks like horses, cats or dog. Me, I like fishing with a rod and a fly. Yes, fishing is a favorite pastime of mine. If I couldn't do it, I think I would cry. Well, life is good when I'm wading a river. It gets even better when I cast a fly. If I catch a trout, it don't really matter. It's fun just to be here and give it a try. Trout is rising in the far eddy. I make a false cast, then take my aim. If he takes the fly, I feel so much better. And if he doesn't, I'll feel no shame. Stoneflies and caddis and the riffles are plenty. Mayflies courting on fragrant breeze. And cedar wax wings come down from the heaven, wait for their dinner up in the pine trees. The water is cold and my waders leak, and it's raining now on my favorite stream. I'll bear it all, just fish with a feather, so when I sleep I will have a sweet dream. And life is good when I'm wading a river. It gets even better when I cast a fly. If I catch a trout, it don't really matter. It's fun just to be here and give it a try. Oh, hey folks, how you doing? Curtis Mayfly here today with Riffles and Waves. I hope you've been watching the show, and I hope you continue to watch the show. It's the fly fishing show for kids of all ages. Last week we tied an olive or a black woolly bugger. That was our first fly, and I hope you watched it so that you can keep up with the lessons. We did a black woolly bugger, okay? Now, today's show, we're going to feature a nymph, a hare's ear nymph, which is the classic all-around nymph. If you can tie the hare's ear nymph, you can just about tie any nymph out there. It has the wing case, and you can use silver or some kind of ribbing material. You got a tail, you got the dubbed body, you got the wing case, and you flip over, and then you can put a beard on it if you want, with some soft hackle from a pheasant or something else. Now, it's also followed by Kurt's Killer Stonefly, which is a great fly on certain times, okay? It's not a every time fly, but it's a fly you got to have in your box, because when they're hitting the giant stoneflies, or the salmon flies they call them, I guess, out west, they're taking them, and it's a lot of fun to fish. First we need to take our thread and start our thread. With a bobbin, you want to make sure the tension is right in these two springs. So you bend these out till you get the right tension on your bobbin. Then you thread your bobbin, and again, don't use a metal threader. And what I do is I start from the back, pull towards me over the hook, and pull both lines tight, and then wrap over the line itself. Okay? And then start wrapping back. And if you hold this tag end at about a 45-degree angle, you can wrap pretty fast and just pull the line down over that, and that will automatically pull it down to the next wind, so you get a nice tight wrap. See that? Nice tight wrap on there. We're going to cut this little tag end off, and what we're going to do now is we're going to do the tail first. I always recommend the tail first. We're going to take some of these little fibers right here, and we're going to cut these out, and we're going to use that for the tail.
I'm going to pull some of the dubbing out of there and put that in our mixing bowl, because we can use all that fine dubbing. And then we just get a little clump for the tail. That's all we want, is a little clump like that. And to measure things, I always pinch it, measure it on the hook. We want this about the length of the hook point, from the hook to the bend, and then I'll pinch it off with my other hand, okay, right where I want it, okay. And then I usually trim that off. I usually trim that off so there's just enough for me to tie with. And then I do the pinch method. The pinch method is where you bring the line up through your fingers, see, your fingers are holding it, and then I pull down lightly, and then I pull up on the other side. You always want to pull up, okay. So I pull up, I come down through my fingers, and then pull up on the other side. Once you do a few wraps, you know it's pretty much on there, okay. There's our tail. Our tail, where the hare's ear nymph, is on there, okay. Now we're going to take some dubbing wax, which I have right here. We're going to wax the thread, okay. Put a little wax on the thread, okay. Now we're going to take our dubbing that we took from the hare's ear mask. We're going to take some of this dubbing in very small quantities and just stick it to the thread, okay. And then we're going to spin it. And it doesn't have to be super tight on the hare's ear nymph, because we want those guard hairs to be all sticking out. We want it to be kind of a this is a good fly to tie when you're beginning to get into dubbing, because you can actually use a little bit too much dubbing and it doesn't hurt the fly. And you can also tie this fly with weight. Oh, sorry, forgot my gold tinsel. I always do that. I always forget my rib. So let's back up here. I'm going to tie my rib in using the pinch method. Okay. Going to leave that dubbing right on there. It's not the best way to do it, but it'll work. And we're going to put that dubbing right up to about the shoulder of the hook. 3/4 of the way, right here. This is the shoulder of the hook. Now I'm going to wrap that tinsel real quick, and I'm going to palmer that. And what that means is you're going to wrap it so there's a gap, and it actually makes a nice rib. It looks like a segmented body. We're going to wrap our thread around that tinsel and then wrap that in there. There we go. So now that's tied off. Okay. The next step is our wing case. We need to put a wing case over the front. And I'm going to take my lacquered turkey quill, and I'm going to pull a little segment out of here and clip it off. Okay, and this is a much too wide a piece. But what's nice is once it's lacquered, it holds together pretty well. So I can like select the size that I want. I'm going to nip it off right here because this has a nice mottled coloring to it, so I want to use that. So I'm going to put that right on top of the hook and do the pinch method, and I'm going to wrap around and tie that wing case down. Okay? And this wing case will go up over the top like so. Okay? We can actually tie it back a little further. You can make this one a little thicker. I didn't like the size of that, so we're going to tie it on there. We're going to wrap it back to about right there. Now we're going to take some more dubbing, and sometimes I use darker for the head, but this is the abdomen, the body section, so this can be pretty fluffy. So I don't use any dubbing wax here because I want it to be really fluffy. Okay? Now I'm going to take a little bit of my pheasant tail fibers, just a little bit, cut them out of there. So we have a little pheasant tail, and that's going to be the beard. That's going to be tied underneath. I'm going to pinch that off, nip it, and this is the hard part because you got to hold that under the hook. And now we're going to do the pinch method, but we're going to do it under the hook. So we're going to actually do the pinch method and then come up and go down. We put our little beard on there, turn it a little bit, nip this off, then we're going to pull our wing case forward, get it right over the top, and we're going to wrap this around. We're going to pull this up, wing case up, nice and tight, and then we're going to nip that. Now we're going to do a half hitch with our bobbin, if I can find it. Where'd it go? I know it was right here. Oh, here it is. To do a half hitch, you're going to take your thread and wrap it around there once, keeping it tight until you slide it over the eye of the hook. Again, I do a double half hitch with 2 wraps and pull that over the top. And you put that over the eye and pull that. 3 or 4 of those will work, and then you top it off with a drop of head cement. You take your bobbin, a little drop right on the eye, right on the head. Then you let that dry. And you're done. When that dries, you have a nice little hare's ear nymph to go nymph fishing. Towards you and then wrap over it. And it's difficult with a long hook like this to wrap because the hook bends, okay? But we're just going to bear with it, and we're going to wrap real fast and get that all the way down the body. So we got a nice base on our fly, and again I'm holding my tag end at a 45-degree angle, and it allows me to wind very fast and not have to even think about it. And it makes a nice tight body on this fly. Oops. Now I'm going to go all the way back to the bend, and that's where we're going to put our tail. I'm going to straighten that hook in there. There we go. And my scissors are over there. Anyway. Uh-oh. Phone call. Phone call. Cut. 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 Okay. Where were we? Okay. I'm going to wind to the bend, cut, and trim. Now, I'm going to make a tail. So I just want a few of these fibers, but I want to line them up. So I'm going to have to take this, and I like to cut it as close to the base as I can, so that you don't have a lot of feathers monkeying around, or a lot of fur. And we're just going to put this inside the hackle pliers.
or the hair stacker, I mean. And then we're going to tap this on our bench. Okay, we tapped it. Now the fibers should be all lined up nice and neat. We're going to pinch it, and that's our tail. Pull some of those loose fibers out. We're just going to put a little tail on there. Doesn't have to be really big. And I like to leave quite a bit of that on there because it helps bulk up the body. So we're going to pinch and wrap, pinch, wrap, and pull up, and then we don't want this to spin too much because it is deer hair. So we're going to loosely wrap over that and then wrap it down. And that'll get all packed down when we put our dubbing on, so I'm not too worried about that. But now we're going to wrap over that, back to the bend, and there's our tail. Okay? Now, we have to get a hackle in there to palmer over the body. So I'm going to find a nice long one. Okay? And I'm going to tie this in by the tip because I want the hackle fibers to get longer as it goes towards the front. So we're going to tie it, just take the tip of that hackle and wrap it in there. Nothing fancy. There we go. That's the palmer over the body. Okay? And we can wrap all we want over that. Oops. Watch out for the hook. That hook is sharp and it will break your line, your tying thread. Now I'm going to really wax this up good and get some wax on my fingers so that there we go. Now I'm going to put a lot of dubbing on. This is one of those flies that, you know, the dubbing companies love because you're going to use a lot of dubbing. And you can tie this with any color you want. You could even use a greener color if you wanted to do use this just as a say like a grasshopper. And we're gonna really put a lot of dubbing on here. We're really gonna bulk this up because we want it to look like a big fat happy stonefly that just hatched. Has a nice yellowish color and is fat and happy and get ready to spawn and lay eggs. So it's a real happy. And some of these are actually orange. You can actually use an orangish color on these. That's where you get into a stimulator, is a more orangish in color, just by nature, you know. But I find this yellow is a good color. I like this color, and many of the golden stoneflies I found, the giant stoneflies, have this color. So this is what I like. This is what I'm sticking to. And again, we're tying Kurt's Killer Stonefly. And we're really going to beef up that body, make a nice body. When you get up to about the shoulder of the hook here, right about in that area, that's where we're going to stop with our dubbing for now. Because what we're going to do is we're going to palmer this hackle over the body. So we're going to just wrap it and make a rib and try to make your segments fairly even. We're just going to wrap that hackle forward and then tie it off. Again, when you're tying off, you got to make sure you're wrapping around that feather. You can't just leave that. Now this feather is pretty good. I could actually keep that on there and use that, but I'm not going to right now. You could actually use that to wrap around the shoulder after we put our hair on there. But what I'm going to do now is actually I'm going to put in another hackle, because this is one we're going to wrap forward, and this one can be tied normally using the base of the feather. So we're going to clip that right there, and this one I'll show you what we're going to do with it later, but right now we're going to clip the two sides off so that we got little nubs to tie on, and I'm just going to tie this on. Okay, I'm not going to wrap it yet. I'm just going to tie that on. Nice. Okay. Now we're going to do our hair trick. So I have my hair here. I'm going to take out a good sized clump, maybe the size of a pencil. Okay. I'm going to pull it right out of there, and then I'm going to nip it as close to the body as I can of the skin. So now I have all this hair, and this is a nice messy fly to tie. So we're going to kind of get some of the loose dubbing out of there. We don't want that on there. See all that little fluffy stuff that's in there? Get rid of that. Now we're going to place this in our hair stacker. We're going to place this in the hair stacker, get the tips in there nice and even. Once you put them in there, you're going to tap that on the table. And that's going to line the fibers up nice and neat. Okay? Pretty good. And again, this is our wing. And we want this to extend past the body. Okay? So our measuring, if it was a stimulator, it'd be right about there. But to make a stonefly, we want it to extend over the body, so I'm going to measure that. Pull out the shorter ones. I'm going to measure that right there. And that's pretty good. I'm using as much of that as I can. I'm going to nip it off kind of even. And then I'm going to loosely wrap and pull up. And then don't let go until you're sure it's on there, because it's deer hair and it will fluff up on you. Okay? See how it goes? But that's our wing. Okay? So we're gonna actually wind a hackle over that, but now we need some more dubbing. What do I do with it? There it is. I need to make the thorax, which is another important part of this insect. They have a fairly beefy head and thorax body where the legs come out of. So we're going to put some more dubbing on there. We're going to pull the wing down and then wrap. And we're going to use a bunch of dubbing here. And it's important that you make a nice head here, because what we're going to be doing is wrapping our other grizzly hackle over this to imitate the legs and the antennae. Okay? Maybe a little more. Well, a little more, a lot more. Make a nice big thorax. There we go, right up to the eye of the hook. Okay? Some of these deer here don't want to stay back. So, now we have our hackle here. I'm going to find my favorite hackle pliers. Clamp that on there. And I'm going to wrap 3 or 4 times around the shoulder, right here, where the wing starts. I want to have several wraps. And then I'm going to palmer this again over the thorax. Okay, so you can see the yellow under it, and wrap right up to the eye, and then I'm going to tie off. Okay? So this is a stonefly, not a stimulator. And I don't want anybody writing me saying, well, that's a stimulator. It's not a stimulator. It was tied to imitate a particular insect, which was the stonefly. I actually took insects to copy, so that doesn't make it a stimulator. A stimulator is one that's just a goofy bug to stimulate something. Fish into feeding, perhaps. But this is Kurt's Killer Stonefly. Look at that. Isn't that a beauty?
The hills are alive with the sound of music.
yesterday.
What?
I came home and told you that very thing, but you didn't pay me. No, never mind.
I did too.
You did not.
I did too.